IPEC module 1. And
You can click record now too.
yeah, I hit it. And at the first module, we're talking about just patterns in history and patterns in the workplace of men and women. And someone pointed out that women, because we're naturally intuitive, have the foresight to not create disasters and avoid them, whereas men create disasters and then are celebrated for fixing them. So it just had me think of what you were saying, had me think of that, because there are so many little things that you do and moms do and women do that go unnoticed because it's like disaster mitigation.
Yeah, but that's why it's important for us women, for us mothers and fathers in many cases, to not focus on the to-do list, because that I have found to be extremely draining, and it takes all my confidence and it makes me feel really insecure. Mm-hmm. Because it's like my to-do list, which includes my goals, is so big and so long, but if I look at it, I feel very insignificant and very small, right? And I feel very tiny, like my gremlin, right? But if I focus on my to-did list, aka now renamed as small victories list, that feels good, because every small victory as a parent, as a mother, as a human being, period, feels good. That's what builds confidence. Little victories build confidence. It starts off when you get up in the morning. Make your bed. Make your bed. There's a reason why they train you to do that in the army, believe it or not. There's a reason. There's a psychological reason, because when you wake up and you make your bed, you already feel good because you already accomplished something, right? Then you go and you brush your teeth and you do all these other things, whatever it is that you do, write them down. It might take you a little while to become used to writing these things down to a point where you will just remember them, right?
Yeah, the whole point is how you feel, and you say, like you mentioned, you feel good. And honestly, I write things down after I do them, and it makes me feel great. And mm-hmm. It could be like I hopped on a Zoom call with Yana, and I write it down after. I'm like, that feels great, and yeah. That's what keeps, like, that's what's real, is how something makes us feel.
Exactly. This is my breakfast, by the way. Because I did quite a bit in the morning, right? So I thought, and I woke up at 7:59, which is, still early enough. And I made a big salad, because what I do is I cut up a whole bunch of like cabbage, regular cabbage, red cabbage, peas, and a whole bunch of other vegetables. Even like raw beets, I shred them in there. And I make this big bowl of salad that lasts us about a week, so that we don't have to worry about it, right? So today, that's what I did, my morning. Instead of having breakfast, I thought I'm just gonna have a liquid breakfast, and then eat later, probably after my mentor call today, because I have a mentor call today at 12:45, so I didn't want to schedule it because I haven't really been reading the book or practicing as much as I would like to. But I know.
The Energy Leadership book?
Did I read it? Yeah.
Is that what you meant, like when you said reading the book?
No, the manuals. The manuals, right? Because if we're reading the manuals, then get more familiar. So I haven't been able to do that in a couple of days. So that's what I'll do before I get on the call. But you know what? I realized that I am a very intuitive coach, and I know these tools. They are in the back of my mind, and they just come out in my own way. But if I sit there with the book and I'm looking at it, I don't do a very good job.
Yeah, I've had the same experience, and I've also experienced if I'm keeping too many of the tools in my head, like too many of the to-dos, like
Yeah.
gotta get that while I'm on the phone with a client, then I kind of lose touch with my intuitive gifts,
Yeah.
and because I'm just thinking so much, and a lot, yeah, as empaths, a lot of the healing that we do and inspire and facilitate for others is intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's a better flow. And I like ever since I started doing that, just like put the freaking book aside. I already have that knowledge. I already know it. I've practiced it. I know it. But if I look at it, it snaps me out of it. So ever since I put that aside and I've been in my coaching sessions, in my peer coaching sessions and all that, I always like ask a question where a client goes, "Oh my God, that's a really good question." And they just like, some of them will sit in there for a couple of minutes. And I used to be so uncomfortable with silence. Now I'm like, yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
I can see the gears moving. And then they have what I call an epiphany, right? Or an aha moment. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Mhm. I love those silences. That's something I love about coaching is how comfortable it's made me with long silences. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask a question and the client won't have the answer, and I'll like, hey, I'll wait all day.
Yeah,
Something like you can keep thinking. There's something in there that's waiting to be uncovered. Keep
yeah,
in there. And I find that often the longer the pause, the more they know what they're gonna say and are just afraid of it coming out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, the other thing I also noticed is, and I can guarantee you noticed it as well, is that by asking these questions, it's like we're opening a can of worms, and not all the worms are gonna crawl out of it at once.
Right,
All
right.
the biggest amount of work that is done for a client with the client is after we are done this session. After the session is over, all of these things are spiraling in there, and so far, all of the sessions that I've had, all the clients that I've had, and I'm pretty sure you would have the same thing, is these clients are extremely motivated afterwards and they get things done. Especially like right after they start doing things and they start working through things, whatever it is that they've been trying to like avoid or procrastinate on doing, however they word it, it creates movement.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's,
it creates movement. At least once a week, it creates movement for them.
yeah. Yeah. And it can, like those conversations that we have with our clients stay with them. So I'll get texts throughout the week after the actual session of like, oh my God, the lesson reveals itself, because the lesson always comes after the test, and there's really only so much we can do on a coaching session, and it's when it's applied in act in life that it really hits, and like
Yeah.
activates new levels of confidence, and
It's
but
beautiful.
like you can just tell, like once they break through their own block, like that's the greatest, when they break through their own blocks without us, and then and like, okay, like you got this now.
Yeah, exactly. All we do is um, believe in them. I mean, there's other things, right, that we do, but believe in them, help them to uncover their own greatness. I mean, that one I believe is the biggest one, because so most of us, um, we don't grow up with someone believing in us all the time. We don't grow up with someone telling us, good job, this is what you did good on. Usually all the flaws and all the bad things that we do are pointed out, not the other side of it, right? So what we do as coaches is we point out the other side, right? And then that way people,
Yeah.
oh, this is how I'm awesome. This is how I do a good job. This is me. This is me. This is me. This is me. Because so far, the record that's playing in there is what is not me, right? What is not me? And then shifting it to what is me, and then following that record, replaying that record. And I mean, there's only so much we can do in like a 45-minute to an hour session with a client. And that's why, and that's once a week. And that's why all the deeper work is done afterwards with all the stuff that they have taken notes on, that we have taken notes on for them and shared with them if they wanted to, right? So, yeah, I love it.
I'm gonna switch gears real quick before I have my first sip of cacao. Because when I make it before these sessions, this is my ceremony. So I am just going to give a quick blessing. And so I want to thank Cacao Spirit for being such a consistent ally and for being such a beautiful heart-opening medicine, such a gentle heart-opening medicine. And I want to thank the growers of this ancient native strain that's from Peru. And I want to thank the company that I purchased it from for having the integrity to develop a nonprofit that reinvests all the funds back into those farmers to incentivize them to grow these ancient native strains. And I have the deepest, most profound respect and reverence for this plant spirit. And with that, I am going to welcome her in, get on to upgrade myself so I can be on her frequency and tap into that creative flow that is always available when we open our heart.
Mm-hmm. I got water today.
It counts. Ceremony is ceremony. It's all about the intention.
Yeah, and I love the lemon water. I can't even drink regular.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So I think my intention for today's session is to have fun as always. I pulled the moon deck card last night that well, I pulled two. I'll show you both actually. So one is, it is safe and beautiful to express my sensuality. And then the other is, play is my pathway to joy.
Nice.
So I am going to be setting my intention for this session to have fun, be playful, be joyful, be ourselves.
Yeah, like we always do.
Yeah.
This is the space for weirdness, any kind of weirdness. And today I decided I'm going to sit in a little bit of a different way in that same room. So this right here, that's the door to the room. So if you see it open, that means somebody's sneaking in. And this is, I'll try to point this right here. I'm still learning how to point. This right here is the closet.
Okay.
Right? And where all arts and crafts are for now. Yeah. And then this leg right here is for the bed. And yeah.
Oh, okay.
Might as well just show you guys the room. So this is our guest room. Right now, our son is sleeping in it. And the dog right now. But our son is sleeping in here, and that's the balcony door and the window.
Oh, there's a balcony.
I think the floor is blue. You know, I can't do plain colors. But our son is sleeping in this room for now because I stained his bed. I stained it and sealed it, and it smells, right? The sealer, it smells. So we have the window open and airing it out. So that way, before we put him in there, there's nothing left. There's no like bad smells left, right? Last thing I want is to have my child smelling in the toxins, really. And as much as I would love to not do it, leaving it untreated, the wood is not going to last very long. And yeah, and then, oh, the other part I'm like really, really excited about is so we had this dresser. It was originally bought with the crib for our daughter. So this dresser we had for both of our kids. And what I did is about, I think what, 2 years ago now. Oh my God, wow, 2 years ago. I repainted it. I repainted it black. I made my own knobs for the drawers in the Batman design. So it's like a Batman, like yellow and a Batman logo on it. And I love paint splatters. So I splattered yellow paint all over it. So I made it so nice and I love it. And we've been trying to, my husband has been wanting to sell it because I'm like, well, let's just get rid of it. We don't really need it, right? Long story short, I had a couple of people that wanted to buy it, but everybody wants it for free basically. And I'm just like, I put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and this is solid wood. Mm-hmm. Right? And these things are not cheap, especially nowadays. So long story short, we're going to be actually keeping that dresser and putting it in our son's room. So he's really excited. And I'm excited to have my own artwork in the house that I can look at and see and feel inspired.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yes. Give me more, right? So yeah. And it's been standing in the garage for basically 2 years, and my husband wanted it out of the garage, and I haven't really been putting in much effort to sell it because I guess without even realizing subconsciously, I didn't want to give it away for free. That consciously I didn't want to give it away for free, but subconsciously I wanted to keep it.
Well, there's a reason that you procrastinated or just held off and making a decision. Like, you were valuing, well, for one, you were valuing your work. You did put a lot of work into it. And also, that subconscious, like not wanting to get rid of it, is so real.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can talk about the subconscious mind for days. I wouldn't have that kind of time to talk about it for days. But in simple language, subconscious mind is what actually rules us. Our subconscious mind is what we're living off, right? Because before I reached for this bottle, my subconscious mind already decided that this is what I was going to do, this is what I was going to say, and then I'm just following the instructions of my subconscious mind. So, in other words, by living consciously and living consciously the way that we want to, we need to change our subconscious mind. We need to re-brainwash our subconscious mind.
Yeah, well, we what we're doing and the kind of work that we do is we bring those subconscious thoughts into the conscious mind, because about 90% of our hard drives are wired, set in place by the time we're 7 or 8. So that's a lot of subconscious wiring dictating our decisions, our choices, our daily life. And the work we do and challenging, really when we challenge the 4 inner blocks. So the work Yana and I do as coaches, we help our clients to break through 4 energy blocks that are internal, because there are also plenty of energy blocks that are external, like projections from family members or friends, or advice that, while well-meaning, is through their own lens, so it might not align with your authentic agenda. And so all sorts of external blocks, like cultural conditioning, and they all do have an interplay, a unique interplay with our internal blocks, which are personal, and we can talk about that another time. But mainly our subconscious patterns are predicated on these 4 internal blocks. And one that we talk about all the time is the gremlin, that inner critic that says, you're not good enough, who do you think you are, you suck, you suck, you suck. And what we don't talk about that often are the other 3. So the other 3 blocks are assumptions. So an assumption is the belief that because something happened in the past, it's going to happen again. So it'd be like if you went for a job interview and got turned down, then, and it came time to go for another interview, your fear-based assumption might be, well, I'm not going to bother going because I'm just going to get turned down again. So that would be an assumption. Because you got turned down at the last one, you're going to get turned down at the next one. And then, so another of the 4 internal energy blocks is the interpretation. So the interpretations are basically the opinions we create. They're the stories we tell ourselves, and then just one interpretation can become the story that dominates our psyche. And it could be something as simple as, like, the cause of it could be as simple as a gap in communication with someone. And we could interpret that gap as, oh, they hate me. They're mad. That's just an interpretation. And that could play on repeat and become a story that creates a huge energy block. And so we typically, that's, interpretations are one of my favorite blocks. Like, when I hear an interpretation that's probably false, because usually if they're based in fear, they're false. Like, there's a huge difference between fear and discernment. Discernment is actually based in love. It's based in unconditional love for yourself and others, and that's where you can set some loving boundaries, some firm loving boundaries. Fear is completely different. It feels different in the body. And so when I hear interpretations that are based in fear, because our thoughts can either be based in fear or based in love. And those are the two options, and everything else is a derivative of that, of either fear or love. So with interpretations, when I hear a fear-based interpretation, first I'll clarify. I'll reiterate the thought back to my client. I'll say, this is what I'm hearing. And then they'll say, yep, that's it. Like, she hasn't gotten back to me. She hates me, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, all right. And then I'll ask, well, how does that make you feel? And then usually it feels like crap. Like, I feel bad. I feel helpless. I feel anxious. And then I'll ask, all right, well, when you're feeling anxious, how likely is it that you're going to engage in whatever it is that they want to engage in? Like, if they want to go do stuff, I'll connect with them the way they're feeling and the amount of energy they're going to have to put towards something that they want to do. And once they kind of see it that way, that thought is just objective, just taking an objective evaluation of what that single thought of, I haven't heard back from her, she hates me, how that could spiral into apathy and lethargy and inactivity. And then I'll return them to the thought and ask, okay, so how is this thought serving you? And having them just take an honest look and evaluate how it's serving them actually helps them to separate themselves from the thought, like distance themselves a bit. And then they realize it's not serving me. And then another way that to go from there, then I like to challenge the thoughts. One of my favorite ways to challenge an interpretation is, what are 2 to 3 other stories for this? Because what that does is then it takes our clients into the realm of empathy, to be challenged to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And, you know, I've heard it so many, like, I chose this example for a reason, because I've heard so many blocks because of interpretations based on communication, because of social media and texting, and how immediate we've all become with our communication with others, and how we drive ourselves mad. And so it just comes up a lot, and so I love asking, what are 2 to 5 other stories for this, because it's what my clients do every time, is they put themselves in the shoes of the other person and start saying things like, oh, well, maybe she was busy with work, maybe she was busy with her family. And then we'll go check back in with the feelings of, okay, so if the new interpretation is, oh, she was just so overwhelmed because she has so much going on in her life, and that's why she didn't get back to me. How do you feel? What emotions come up? Passion. And then when you feel compassion, how likely is it that you're gonna go out into the world being, your best self? Pretty likely you're gonna go out first. So that's interpretation. So there are some other ways to challenge interpretations, and that's just one of them. Like thinking up other stories. Like what's another story for that? It just and when we it's I recommend, like, I can explain it all day long, but until you work with a coach who stops you and challenges you, it's hard to get that cadence in your head for yourself to
Yeah.
evaluate and filter.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and that's why I love, like, when I first worked with a coach, I'd go throughout my day and hear her anytime I'd approach a block, one of those 4 blocks. I didn't know that's what they were, but I could hear myself challenging myself through her cadence of question, like her rhythm of questioning. Um, and so that is just like working with a coach to challenge these blocks is so regenerative, and there's so much potential for
Mhm.
continuing that, being able to hear your own thoughts and challenge them and choose thoughts that serve you much better than the thoughts created by these blocks. And then the fourth block is the limiting belief block. So this one's kind of more self-explanatory and easy to spot. It's like a huge one, two huge limiting beliefs for me. One was women aren't scientists. It was just a limiting belief that I had my whole life, and I studied liberal arts and English, and it wasn't until I was at IPAC at the module coming up with limiting beliefs that I was operating under that I realized that I even had that thought, that it was even part of my psyche. And then I got to ask myself, well, why is it so important to me? And it turns out because I love science, and I would have been studying science all along, if it wasn't like a limiting belief that a woman could never make a career out of that kind of study.
Mhm.
And another limiting belief that I held was the starving artist story. Just that if you choose a creative path, you're going to be destitute. And so this could actually be an assignment for this session for anyone watching, is to make a list of all the limiting beliefs you can think of, because we live in a limitless universe.
Yeah.
We're entering a new paradigm where there are no limits. The possibilities are infinite. So any limiting beliefs you can think of, we're going to smash them. And then, so come up with a list of limiting beliefs. Like I shared mine, that artists end up destitute and women can't study science, and anything. Like we need, another limiting belief I held was that we need a paycheck from an employer. An employer has to pay us. That held me back from being the fire starter that I am at heart, and being a solopreneur, thinking that I needed benefits from an employer and 401k and health insurance, like everything that was designed by the system, by the status quo, contributed to the limiting beliefs I held. And that's kind of where the cultural indoctrination and encoding come in. They create our limiting beliefs, often. And so it's what we do as coaches, again, is if we hear a limiting belief, we recognize it. Oh God, it just feels like stuck and trapped. And we can hear them, and we just want to change them for you,
Mhm.
but we can't. It's your job. It's not our job. Our job is to just point them out. So I usually, one of my favorite questions to ask to challenge a limiting belief, like I'll hear it and then I'll say, so what I'm hearing is you can't study science because women don't study science. Let's say that was it. Or you can't be an artist because artists end up destitute and homeless. And then I'll just ask, how true is that really? And it's just so funny, the pause on the other end of the phone when I ask, how true is that really? And well, I guess it's not true.
Mm. Yeah. Um,
Like, yeah, right? Like, it sounds so simple.
mhm.
It sounds so simple, but it is paradigm. Did I freeze?
A little bit, yeah, in the end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last thing I heard was, it sounds so true, and then that was it.
Oh, yeah, I was saying it sounds so simple, but it really is paradigm shattering. A simple question, how true is that really?
Hmm.
To cause someone to pause, because generally in conversation, we um with friends and family, we contribute to the story, or like we reinforce it. We don't really challenge each other's limiting beliefs the way that a coach does. We like I know, and there's so many groups of friends who someone is experiencing righteous indignation, yet the friends will like rally behind the person. Like if someone's going through a breakup or something and talking shit about their ex, friends are like, yeah, fuck him. And whereas a coach would be like, let's focus on you.
Yeah.
We're not, like, let's move you forward and expand a bit beyond the typical conversation of people pleasing, gossiping, whatever it is, where we don't realize the opportunities to challenge blocks, really.
Yeah. Well, in
We
normal
just
conversation, it doesn't happen, right? In a normal conversation, that does not happen because friends, what they believe that they must do in order to keep a friend, um, is to do what they want them to do, to say what they think they want them to say. And the moment that and I've never been that way, and if I don't agree, I keep my mouth shut. I won't say anything, right? But when I say something, it's quite often it would be something that the person might not hear. So I would challenge them, and most people don't like that. They don't like it. I've had quite a few friends who would talk smack about other people that I know and other people that I don't know, and creating these stories and these scenarios of these people that I don't know. So when I meet these people, I have their record playing in my head, and I refuse to listen to it. And then when I challenge that person and say, well, is it possible that the reason why they do this or do things this way or say this or act this way or the way they are is based on their life, is based on maybe perhaps their parents, the stuff they have gone through? Do you know their story? Have you asked them their story? Right? How familiar are you actually with different possibilities of that story? And when I say things like that, right away, that person gets to level 2, angry, righteous, and then it's like an attack. I just picture like a sword comes out, or like challenge me to a duel now, and I'm just like, listen, I'm not here to duel. I'm not here to have a sword fight. I am here to speak my mind. I'm here to honestly help you see a different side.
Yeah,
You think differently, just a little bit, and also at the same time give you a little bit of an insight on how I think.
which you would think, uh, I would think people would be curious. That's part of what I've had one of my shadows is impatience when it comes to uh, people being a little bit more curious about my perception of the world.
Mhm.
And um, So, like, just as you're describing, I experienced something recently where someone in conversation wanted me to join in judging another. And I was listening. I was just listening with my mouth shut. And then when it came time where and normally the social norms would apply, and you'd be like, yeah, that person, yada, yada. I didn't say anything. And this person was waiting for a response. And I just simply said, I don't judge people. And the respect that held up, of course, resulted in backlash at me, but it had nothing to do. I was saying you're judging. It had nothing to do with the other person. It was simply my perception of the world. It's very hard for me to judge anything as one way or the other, because when we do this kind of work, expanding our levels of consciousness, like, you understand level 7 energy. That's when I'm not under stress, that is my primary level of energy. So even when I'm just sitting observing someone judging another, it's fine. I could sit there and watch the human movie that this amazing show that we talked about last time. And but yeah, just I can sit there and watch it like I'm watching a movie. But then when it comes time that my participation in the story is requested, I can't reflect unconsciousness back to the person. It won't happen. I can't play along. I don't have the facilities anymore. Like
Yeah.
I like I used to. I was able to play the game and give everyone what they wanted and join in. And even though I didn't know, like, I remember specifically uh, deviating to make someone else happy. This moment when someone called me over. We were in our 20s, and someone called me over to look at pictures on our computer, and she was like, look at she was showing me a photo of someone. She's like, look at her dress. And I was like, oh, nice. And then she's like, can you believe she wore that? And I was like, oh, I mean, and like changed my initial reaction. And I thought back to that moment so many times, because I don't think I would have had an opinion about the dress either way. I don't think I would have made, like, if I was just going through social media and saw that picture, I don't think it would have crossed my mind to even make a judgment about the dress. I would just simply notice this person's wearing a dress. That's how my brain works. So then when it when this I was like felt like, oh, I played the game wrong. I have misread. I thought she was just showing me this dress, and really she wanted to engage and talk and shit about this other person. And it just, like, I remember that so specifically because I felt it drained me. Like, whenever I would pull myself out of alignment to join in the culturally encoded norms of gossip, it would take me a lot. I didn't know at the time what this was happening, but it was always so draining because it was such a deviation from my authentic self that it would take a lot of time to recover, and I would need a lot of alone time to get back to center. And during that alone time, all the things I said joining in would come up, and I'd be like, why did I say that? And I would like experience regret and guilt. And and that's why, like, knowing that that's how it made me feel and that's how much recovery I needed after joining in the, like, mob mentality, just so I could, which comes from a place of wanting to be safe. Like, if you challenge the tribe and get kicked out of the tribe, our primal instinct is like, well, I'm gonna die, because they are like, we need our tribes. And like, back in the day, we needed them for fire and housing and food. And and so now when it comes time to stand up for your individual sense of self, it's scary. It feels like you're going to die. Then you live through it and you keep doing it. You keep breathing and doing it again. um but yeah, once I realized how much it took me to recover from all those times when I did deviate to be socially accepted by the tribe. It was just enough for me to be like, I'm just not gonna reflect it back anymore. If someone reflects unconsciousness at me, I'm either gonna be just maintain presence and not say anything, or I'm going to say what my perception is. And if it challenges them, that's on them. Like in the conversation I mentioned where I said I don't judge people, the reaction was, "Oh, come on, Rachel." And and I just felt my soul. Felt my soul leave my body, and I was like, "Come on, what? Like, what do you want from me?"
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times where I gave in to how would I call it? Peer pressure.
Yeah.
Peer pressure, because we're having a conversation and all they want to hear, because it's not a conversation we're having, it's that person is talking at me, telling me what they think, what they believe, their experiences, their gremlins, their assumptions, their interpretations, their limited beliefs. They're telling me all these things, blaming somebody else for it in a way, right? And telling me how horrible this individual is. And it's a one-sided conversation, and I'm just like thinking I'm in my own little world, hearing it a different way, because the way I would hear that, what they're saying about this person, what this person does, I'm just visualizing this person as a child. I'm visualizing this person as someone who was yelled at, maybe beaten with a spoon. I'm visualizing them even as an adult, having maybe a relationship or relationships with friends or with partners, and basically everyone coming at them and telling them all the ways that they're not good, all the ways how they're failing. Because nobody, like I said, nobody stands there and points out in all the ways of how awesome we are, how incredible we are, how much potential we have. And stop wasting your potential because you're awesome, right? We just hear, you're wasting your potential. Do something, do something, do something, right? But there's no other side to it. And I wrote down on here is like, judgments are draining. Comparison is a form of judgment. Because when we compare ourselves to others, what we're doing is we're judging ourselves. And I can tell you from personal experience, that doesn't feel good. It does not feel good. So what do you do? Right? What do you do instead of comparing yourself and judging yourself? What I do is I remind myself how it's either I am the same as that person, right? How I'm the same as them, or how similar we are, or because what we admire in others is what we admire in ourselves that we might not even realize yet, right? So I see what is it that I love about them, what is it that I admire about them, and then find them within myself and remind myself that I am awesome, right? Make a list of your awesome. I even made a post in my Instagram about I called it the awesomeness jar, right? And so what you do is you basically, and I didn't really write too much about it. On top, I think I might go back and edit and add more to it. But basically, the purpose of that jar is, instead of focusing on all the bad, negative, horrible things that we believe we are, which we're not, which we think that we are, which we're not, focus on how awesome you are. And the reason how I came up with that is I was just like replaying my teenage years. Why is it I was so confident when I was a teenager? Why is it that I had an idea and I would just go and do it? There was no hesitation. There was not very much fear in there. How was I able to do that? And I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. It's
I wonder if you I wonder if you pulled that out of my brain, because I was like, as you're talking, I was like subjectively listening, relating it back to myself. And I was like, I think for me, it was always weed that got me back.
Smoking as a teenager very much. Like I was very little bit, but what I did do is and I didn't even realize it, and it might sound kind of like that I was a cocky person, but I was not. I always thought of myself and found ways to tell myself of how awesome I was, how good I was, anything that I was doing, anything that I was thinking. I always like it was this record playing of my awesomeness record, my checklist of all the awesomeness of myself. Right? And like I said,
Records out to the tribe.
right? Create your awesomeness list, your awesomeness to did list, your awesomeness to do list. How awesome you are in all the different ways, in all the different areas of your life, and expand that list and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. Change that record. And I was never a cocky person. Anyone that knows me from back in the day, I was not a cocky person. I was just being. And if you didn't like me, that was your problem, not mine. I had no problem being by myself. I enjoy being by myself, right? I got to do whatever I wanted without the fear and worries of somebody else judging me or saying, why are you doing that? I didn't have to answer to anyone, right? So
it's just judgment. Judgment is just, I think it's just the root of all separation, because even if we're judging someone as better than us, or we're idealizing someone, we create a sense of separation from them. And I remember, like, I started understanding this on a deeper level when I started being like realizing that my expression was influential, and I started receiving comments on things I'd post, and they'd it'd be like wonderful things, like if anyone would love to hear that kind of support and feedback. And I would notice sometimes it would cause separation within, because I'd want to tell people, like, I'm just me though, like I'm nothing, like and I'd remind people, everything that you're seeing in me, that you admire in me, is within you, or else you wouldn't have the capacity to perceive what it is that I'm putting out there. You wouldn't hear these words, so they're your words. And I've been kind of relentless about reflecting it back, because I don't like the separation that I feel being idealized or made to seem like I'm anything like I'm just human, just like everyone else. And it's not like I like came out of the womb and like lived my whole life with this access to wisdom. I worked for it. Like I began my coaching journey in 2013 and have been so an example, like I just, to spread a little joy, posted in my Facebook story my dance party to this Grateful Dead song that my sisters and I love dancing to, because it just made me so happy, like picturing them dancing with me. And so they're so in my heart, and I knew if I posted it on Facebook, they would see it, and we'd all just be together in the higher dimensional realm. And then I got a lot, like I haven't even gone back to look at the comments, because I got a lot of comments from those videos. And some were like commenting, like complimenting my energy. And I mean, some were kind of weird, but some like on Facebook can get weird.
any social media platform.
Yeah. Like, don't make it weird. Please don't make it weird. Like, I love sharing who I am. I love sharing my joy. Please don't make it weird. But you
said, please don't make it weird. What are you gonna get? You're gonna get all the weird.
Oh yeah. The universe doesn't hear no, so all the universe hears is, oh, she wants the weird. Which is great. I mean, you know, yeah, it's true. I chant the nature freaks and freaks of nature all day long. But so one of the comments that I got back though was about my energy and was like, "How do you do it?" And like just like kind of I idealizing me. And the thing is, like, I worked really hard. You know, I've now been on this path for 7 years. I wasn't able to do that a year ago. I wasn't able to experience that level of joy on the daily and spread it, and I wasn't able to do it 2 years ago, and so forth. So it's not like me. It's not unique to me. It's a frequency that I've worked hard to expand into so that I can then share it with the tribe. And that's what I want others to understand is that if they perceive it in me, they're also playing judging me.
Mhm.
And um and I know there are people who think that I'm not deserving of experiencing joy, and that's cool. Like, that's their own perception of the world. So I know there are people judging me, but the people who are admiring me, it's not about, like, just as the people who judge me and want me to fail, um, the people who and that's about them. It's the people who admire me, that's about them too. Like, it's not me. I'm just a reflection. And so it's that separation um, that occurs when we judge one way or the other. And just being an empath, I'm so sensitive to it. Like, the moment I feel that separation, and I've felt it. I've honestly felt it my whole life. Like, when we went to school, and some kids got A's and some kids got F's, and I was like, they're the same. And then we would get separated into different classrooms based on how well we were doing. And it would just be bizarre. I'd be like, this is the same fucking kid. Like, now this kid is all stressed out because she got A's, and she's like, now I have to maintain this. Oh my God. Like, everybody thinks I'm so smart and so special. This sucks. And then the kid who got his first F's like, well, now no one expects anything of me. So why am I going to even try? And it just starts so young, that separation, because of the hierarchy, because at the top of the hierarchy, you're the best, and we're all striving to get to the top of the hierarchy. We could just get rid of, well, build around the hierarchy, because it's going to just crumble on its own. So we just build around and work as a network, as these individual unique snowflakes, or each a unique snowflake that can fractal our beautiful energy outward. Then we don't have to feel that separation that comes from better than, worse than, inferior, superior. Like, someone with a lot of money is no different than someone who struggles financially. And like, I was talking to a woman I met. Actually, I met her when I took my grandma out for lunch with her girlfriends, and I met this woman who she asked me what I was reading. I'm reading Ram Dass, Still Here. And I started telling her about the book, and then she was like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a life coach. And we just got into this conversation about her experience, where she went from coaching kids in poverty stricken areas, and then her job changed. Like, she moved and she got a job working with kids at like a wealthy private school as a counselor. And she was like, the problems that they experience, the same, the absentee parents, like this and that, like separation, all the same problems. So there is no inferiority or superiority. There is no better than or worse than. We're all just doing our best, and we're all just here, and we're just reflections and mirrors. That's all we're seeing. And anything that we're judging in another is medicine for us to look into and say, what's really going on here? Why am I judging this other person's dress, or whatever it is they're judging? And I see so much of it too, just because of, I don't want to get into politics necessarily, but just the political climate has created so much judgment, because it's in America, two-party system. So it's just literally level two of, we're right, they're wrong, and then that side being like, we're right, you're wrong. So no energy's moving. They're just canceling each other out.
Yeah. Well, that's how war happens, right? Because one country says, I'm right, you're wrong. And that country says, you're wrong, I'm right. And then the level 2 gets angrier and angrier, angrier and angrier, and the war happens, right? And over the years, we've learned that the wars became bigger and bigger and bigger. And the time that we're in right now can easily also be perceived and seen and heard and acknowledged, I guess, in a way that what we're going through right now is kind of like a war, right? That we're each and this is like World War III, really, if we think about it. I mean, I don't know. I can say a lot of this topic, but I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it to a minimal, because each and every one of us has beliefs, has judgments, has interpretations of everything that's going on, based on our own experiences, based on what we have learned, because there's so many different platforms where you can learn, where you can go and you can hear what is going on. And there's so many different conspiracies about different things. And honestly, like I said, this topic is just so big and so huge, but I honestly see it as this is like World War III. And the economy is already crashing. People are suffering because during the war, there's a huge amount of suffering happening, whether it's death, whether it is sickness, whether it is in here, whether it is in the gut, or whatever it is, right? This is what's happening right now. People are suffering all around the world, no matter where they're living, they're suffering one way or another. So, what do we do from here on? Right? If this is how it is, if this is what's happening, preparing for the future. What kind of future? Honestly, an online world.
A what world?
Online world. Most people are going to be now doing everything they possibly can online. A lot of people right now are investing in themselves, is how I would explain it. And this is what I love. I just feel like I'm kind of like missing out because I'm not putting myself out there very much at all. But a lot of people are investing in themselves. Why? It's because they want to come out on the other side with new set of skills. Or some people, what they're doing is they want to come out on the other side and tell their boss, tell their company, I no longer need you, because while you guys close down, I found another way. Because when one door closes, many other windows are left open.
Exactly.
Just pick one. Pick one that you want and go after. This is where people are now following their dreams. They're realizing their goals because now they have the time to work through that stuff. They're realizing their dreams and they're going after their dreams. And that itself is not an easy feat. I started following dreams in 2016 and I'm still following them. That's like 4 years in the making. The first 2 years were extremely difficult. I didn't even know what coaching was at that time. If I knew, I would have invested in the coach after questioning myself after a little while and telling myself I'm worth it. I would have invested in a coach. But I needed to go through those 2 years of like hardcore suffering to be able to come out on the other side stronger.
It was interesting. You and I both started following our dreams around the same time, because I knew that in 2016, end of 2016, I knew that I was done working at the corporation, and also I didn't have clarity on what I was going to do. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know my exact goals. I just knew how I wanted to feel, and I knew my core values. At the time, I remember integrity being a huge core value, truth being a huge core value, justice being a huge core value, and creativity. And whatever I was doing, as long as I was within those core values and following whatever, like I had conditioned myself because those meant conditioned myself to see opportunities in which to align with them. So because I didn't have a plan, I saw the opportunities. So I was able to plant seeds down a few different avenues. So one was enrolling in coach training. And again, I had no idea I was going to be a coach. I just wanted the tools. And another, I accepted a job right after I quit my job with doing wind energy, like working with a wind energy company. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that's aligned with my core values. I thought I was going to be like my main plan was being in a business partnership with my romantic partner. Um, and that was interesting. And I learned a lot about if you're going to do that, both of you. Like I learned a lot about lack mentality and money stories, and how important it is if you're going to go into that kind of partnership with someone, you both have to heal your money stories. You can't heal someone else's money story for them.
Yeah.
And then so that didn't work out. Taught me so much, but didn't work out. And then and Women Grow, like what led me on such a journey that I could have never imagined was volunteering. So when I first left my job and had no idea what I wanted to do, there was this giant void in my soul because I'd been working for the man and like contributing to the gentrification in a city I loved so much and the culture that I love so much. Part of my job was to glorify gentrification, which I understand is a natural cycle and a natural neighborhood cycle, but at the same time it was happening so quickly that the residents who lived in these neighborhoods for years, and some were, they were first generation Americans, and or immigrants that had come to that neighborhood and planted seeds and roots. And so there I had this huge void where I had deviated from my authenticity for so long, and the only way I knew how to fill it was by volunteering. So I just kept saying yes to volunteer opportunities that came up. Like one was in doing the like meal prep in a women's shelter. One was I was a mentor for these kids in this school in Dorchester, which is a neighborhood in Boston where used to be not a lot of love went into the development, and then it was gentrified, and so I was volunteering, and it just and I volunteered with Women Grow, which was it became Elevate Northeast, but it was the cannabis organization that is now my family. And I could have never imagined the journey, the past 3 years that I've been on because of these seeds and not having a plan and trusting with my entire being that the universe would have my back because I was leading from the heart and soul, and saying yes anytime my soul whispered to me and nudged me. I heard it, and I had no idea what was going to happen, and I just chose to follow it. And I still am. I still have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what's going to happen. Still don't even, like, I love coaching, and I still don't even know if that's what I am. you I still don't. So yeah. So I mean, all that was to say, you don't necessarily have to be crystal clear on what you're going to do. I I don't really recommend my path to anyone. It takes a unique individual to leave a six-figure job without a plan and just smiling, being like, the universe has my back. It's all good. Don't worry. That's not for everyone.
No, it's definitely not. But many have done it, and now even more are doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And so if anyone's there and at that point, you know, that Anais Nin quote, that's and the day came when the risk it took to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
Yeah.
That just like at the, I was just ready to leave that job. That quote was just playing on my head like this hurt. It's painful. It's painful to stagnate like that and to dim your light and smother your potential and bargain with your potential. Like, oh, it's so painful to bargain with your potential. Like, you know your worth.
Honestly,
And so
I'm just seeing like a caterpillar hanging in a cocoon, and not every caterpillar actually comes out of that cocoon alive, right? Some caterpillars
where
are.
you going with this?
Where I'm going with this is the cocoon. I know, right? It's like you drop a bomb. Please explain, Anna. What do you mean? What I mean is that
Like, I'm not alive, right?
what I mean is that when you are feeling like you are in the cocoon, when you are restricted, right? When you feel like you have nothing left in you, when you feel like your job is a dead end, when you feel like you can't go after anything, that you feel like you can't do it, you are that caterpillar, right? You're in the cocoon.
No,
And
see, I don't. That doesn't. For me, I feel like I was the caterpillar. Like, the cocoon was great. I love. Like, my cocoon was very different than. It didn't feel constricted.
but
Like, my cocoon felt like safe. Huh?
for many people, it does, right? For many people, the jobs that they're working is just to put food on the table, right? To pay the bills, to do all that. And it feels to them like a restricted cocoon. Cocoon doesn't feel restricting to a caterpillar. Cocoon to a caterpillar feels safe and like a home. But then when they come out, right, it takes a while to open up the wings. It takes a while to get ready to fly. Some butterflies fall, they don't fly right away, but then they're able to get back up and they fly, and they're like this beautiful, beautiful creature. And we all have that potential to become that butterfly. And if you are one of those butterflies that comes out of that cocoon and you fall, know that just take the time, straighten your wings, because one of the wings is probably not fully out. Take the time to straighten that wing out and then start flapping again, and you're gonna take off like a beautiful butterfly to wherever you're supposed to go. I think monarch butterflies, they go to Mexico. Isn't that how they have the
Yep.
Day of the Dead? Cinco de Mayo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my birthday, by the way, May 5th. So.
Well, no, it's I think it's October 30th. That's when they migrate to Mexico in the fall.
I've seen like videos.
Yeah, but I just want to clarify what I was saying about the caterpillar chrysalis butterfly stage. For me, the being at work, being stagnant at work felt like being the caterpillar and being like, oh, I'm just like crawling around, like looking at the top, like under the low leaves, and like there's like in the thought like there's got to be more, there's got to be something more to this life.
Mm-hmm.
That to me felt like the caterpillar. And then the leap of faith, like the leap of faith that I took when I left, I felt like I took the leap of faith into the cocoon or the chrysalis.
Yeah.
And that was where I cultivated for myself. Like, I went into a period of isolation, lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of connection with family. And because I knew like no one was going to understand my internal world at this point. Like, the decisions I was making looked crazy. I was called crazy. and everybody around me was projecting their fears. I could count on a few fingers the number of people who understood and was like, "You got this." Everyone else in my world was projecting their own perception, which is scary to see someone you love being like, "I'm deciding to live up to my true potential." Don't know how, but it's because then it holds up a mirror, like, okay. But that space that I created for myself in the isolation so that I could lose all form, like that's like the caterpillar turns to goo in the chrysalis. What it felt like I was doing in that period of isolation. And I don't know if anyone knows much about numerology, but there's at the time I got all the permission I needed to be in that chrysalis stage and in that isolation because I looked into my personal year. So if anyone is interested, my resource for numerology is, her name's Felicia Bender, and I actually read for the first time my life path number read up the other night, and it was wild how accurate it was, and so helpful at the same time. But so I was reading the 7 that year. I was on a 7 personal year path, which is it basically said like you might be doing a deep dive into soul excavation, and you might be isolating yourself, and so it just gave me the permission I needed to do that. And there was this, it almost was like a clear moment when I was ready to emerge from the chrysalis as a butterfly. I feel like it just happened like to be honest, I feel like it just happened during quarantine. Like doing this, like, but it happened in stages, like fear of being seen lessened and lessened, because it is scary. Like, who am I to be a butterfly? Like, I'm just gonna show up one day and be like, I'm wonderful and great and full of joy. I'm radiant and vibrant. And so that's scary because everybody still knows you as the caterpillar. And that was why I was just challenging it a little bit, because like to me the chrysalis felt like the infinite space where it felt like I could just like be in the chrysalis or the cocoon and nobody could say anything that was gonna get me to change my mind or doubt my intuition. Like the chrysalis to me is just this blanket of like permission to align with my intuition.
Yeah. See, the reason why I think I brought it up because I'm thinking like, why did it come out that way? Why did the cocoon come out as this dark, lonely place? And the reason why I did is because that was my own journey. When I was in that cocoon, even though it was safe, and I knew it was safe, subconsciously I knew it was safe, but consciously I didn't. And to me, it felt like suffocating and suffering, right? Because I mean, the cocoons of butterflies, they're not all in one place. They're spread in different areas of the world. And some areas of the world are a little bit darker, a little bit more scarier, and not every caterpillar survives because it can get eaten, right? So I guess that's where it was kind of coming through based on my own story, based on where I was, based on me being at this job and being that caterpillar. And I agree, like I was that caterpillar that was moving through, and then I went into my cocoon. But when I went into my cocoon, I was in a dark place, right? Because I left this job, I wasn't making much at that job. That's number one why I left it. And well, that was actually one of the numbers. Number one why I left it is because I thought it was my dream job and it turned to be a nightmare job. And it had given me the gift of severe panic attacks and massive anxiety, like from morning to night, and not basically sleep was non-existent even at night. Um, so that was where my darkness in the cocoon and the loneliness came from, right? And that's why I wanted to, I guess, elaborate on that part, because I can understand why, not understand, I can relate to the people that are going through that or have gone through it, and perhaps they're not able to connect with themselves and who they are, and they don't see themselves as a butterfly yet. Because for most days I still see myself as that big fat caterpillar. My son was reading a caterpillar a book, right? Because that's where another reason why the caterpillar came to mind, because it's like right there. um, and eating all these different foods that this caterpillar was eating until he finally ate the food that is the very hungry caterpillar, yes. Until,
Yeah.
until he finally ate the food that was meant for him. Instead of eating through the garbage that's not for him, he ate through
Yeah.
one nice green leaf, and he felt much better.
Yeah.
It's the same thing
Eat
here.
your green.
All these things that you've gone through your life, they don't necessarily going to make you feel good, because they're not your type of food. They're that garbage food that the caterpillar was eating, until you eat what is good for you. And then you go into that cocoon, and you then work through. And the cocoon for me was same as you, isolating myself from the world, from people. I didn't even have very many friends when I went into this, but I gained some friends, and then I lost some of those friends, right? Because the the stories are different. We are speaking a different language, really, and you can't even have a conversation because they are so level one or really level two, and they're just angry at everything and everyone. And in my world, sunshine and rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah. It's
But
yeah, and it's no judgment on the level 1 and 2 like perceptions. I get it. We've all been there.
I just don't want to
It's
go
just when it
there.
exactly to just being around it. Like I remember the first time I had to set a boundary, and I didn't know how yet. It was early on while I was being coached, and part of being coached is when I was removing a lot of the blocks. I realized a lot of what was causing me stress and anxiety was absorbing it from others, and I didn't know I was an empath then, or even what an empath was, and so it was subconscious. I didn't realize I was doing that. And then it came time to set a boundary with someone who would call me and give a laundry list of complaints. And it was just like the day it was the same. Like the laundry list never changed. It was the same over and over. And again, like before before I learned more about myself and I was able to play the social game and just like mindlessly be like, oh yeah, that sucks, oh, and just like say whatever responses would give that other person that energetic fuel that they're looking for. So on an energy level standpoint, what I'm describing is someone with a lot of level 1 energy expressing level 1 thoughts. No judgment, totally normal. It's a learned behavior and a learned attitude because to it. We use level 1 energy because people will give us sympathy and help us and try to do things for us because we're essentially saying, I'm helpless. I can't do for myself. So keeping that in mind, when as, and I'm sure so many empaths experience this, when others come to us with level 1 energy, our level 4 energy, which is concern for others, is activated. We want to help, we want to fix, we want to do. At the same time, there is for many empaths and highly sensitive people, the people pleaser survival tactics. Um, while we have the capacity to perceive beyond the game of level 1, level 4 exchange, while we could see that it's happening, sometimes it's too scary to change that pattern, to set a boundary and hold that other person accountable for their energy because of deeply ingrained trauma or conditioning, how to use people pleasing to achieve approval and essentially survive and become the people we are now. So what I realized at that time was, once I began understanding what that my level 4 energy would then result in level 1 for me, because I would absorb, show concern, show concern, show concern. So the person who had been at level 1 would be filled up. They'd get what they came for, the sympathy, the offers for help, the acknowledgement, and then they'd go on their way. And then I'd be left with this heaviness and drained, and then I would feel level 1. So once I recognized that that was a pattern and that it was my response, it wasn't going to change unless I set a boundary, I said to this person, I was like, I said simply, negative makes me uncomfortable. So you can continue saying this laundry list of complaints, but I'm going to put the phone down and not listen. It was simple as that. The other person was shocked. It still brings it up today that I said that, but it was not an attack. It was not a judgment. It was just simply, this is what I need so that I can become the person I'm meant to become. And I can't, again, like, I'm not going to reflect unconsciousness back. So not holding someone accountable, while I can acknowledge and validate and express sympathy, if someone needs to release something, for me to be who I truly am, I then want to move into, so what do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
And that will give me energy. If we could move past the level 1 release, and then, okay, now what? I'd be all in. I'd be in the conversation. If knowing that we'd be moving forward. But if I'm only there as the sponge for the catabolic shit, I don't have the time for that right now.
Yeah. It's almost like then you jumping in the pit with them, and that does not help anyone. Somebody needs to be out on top to help them to climb out, and if you jump in the pit with them, it's not serving anyone. You become the same, right? You're going through the same feelings and emotions pretty much as that person. And especially when we are highly sensitive people, we feel that much deeper and we connect. I can look at a person and they can have like a joy and smile on their face, but I don't feel that inside. I feel their pain and their agony. And I used to think that it was me. And I'm like, why is it that I'm feeling this pain and agony while they're smiling? And I realized that all that I was feeling was not mine. It was them. And they were just really good at playing a role. That's what tends to happen with pretty much everyone I know. I remember even working at the bank, and I remember this like it was yesterday. My manager said to us, to all of us, and she said it to us a couple of times, that when you are at work, you are an actor. No matter what you have going on in your life, you're here to put on a show. So when you are at work, you better put on a good show. Put on a mask if you have to, and forget of anything else, right? And it might sound like a motivational speech, but at the other side of it, it's like you're going through your shit. I don't care what you're going through. Suck it up, buttercup. Put on the mask and pretend you're happy. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're putting on a mask, the one that has a smile on it, and they're pretending like everything is fine and peachy. Everything is not fine and peachy. And I'm here to tell you that my life is not perfect. I'm not fine and peachy. I have days where I feel miserable and I feel worthless and I feel like I'm not doing anything, even if I'm doing something. And that I'm worth more and I'm wasting my time. And I have those days. And then I remind myself, I coach myself, I go through these things and I coach myself through it and I get myself out of it. But if there's a benefit of, because that's level one, right? But if there's a benefit of being a level one, then heck yeah, I'm going to stay there.
Right.
I'm going to stay there. And I'm going to sulk and I'm going to enjoy it because I know tomorrow is going to be another day. And if I have to get angry and do something about it, then I will. But for the most part, I don't have to get angry. Next day I wake up, I've been in my swamp. I soaked in all the nasties of the swamp, and rejuvenated myself, detoxified myself, and the next day I'm new and I'm able to go and get shit done.
Yes. Kind of like going into a cocoon and coming out butterfly.
And I do that on a daily basis almost, right?
Yeah, same. As you were talking, I was just thinking to myself of how empaths, because we have the capacity to feel all the entire spectrum of human emotion. Like we have access to euphoria and bliss that many others don't at this time. And I say at this time because I believe in my heart of hearts that everybody can access the entire spectrum. Empaths were we just came into this world feeling it all, and it's never really dulled for us, and so we feel on the one extreme we can feel bliss, euphoria, ecstasy. I remember reading Dodging Energy Vampires by Christiane Northrup, and there's some line that was like, the sun sends like pure light into the soul of the empath, or like pure euphoria, and it was like, doesn't, like, I remember there are a lot of times where I learn things about myself and then I'm like, doesn't everybody experience that though? Like, doesn't everybody experience pure euphoria when the sun shines down on them? And then as I move through life and I am around other people and hear how busy their brains are, I'm like, well, that's why they're not, because their brains are too busy to feel it in the moment. So anyways, yeah, so we can feel that extreme euphoria, and then on the other side, continue, and we feel grief, we feel suffering, we feel straight up doomsday. Like I want to be clear about my experience of joy. Well, yes, I experience joy on a daily basis. I have to cultivate that for myself, and I have to prioritize it, because I do absorb, like, I don't watch the news. I don't expose myself to anything in the mainstream media really, because I feel it, and I feel the cosmic energy. I feel the grief and suffering. And as you and I talked about, like, we have dreams, like prophetic dreams, and they could either be utopian in nature or dystopian in nature. And I've woken up from my fair share of dystopian nightmares, and just doomsday nightmares, and it's a lot. And so, as you were talking about your process, I think a lot of empaths on the daily can experience that doomsday on the one hand, and then unbridled optimism and idealism on the other in any given second. And sometimes I feel most of the time I feel both at the same time. So a lot of times people see me embracing my joy and living in my joy. At the same time, the reason that I'm experiencing that joy in that moment is because at the same time I'm also feeling the other end of the dichotomy. So my experience of joy is actually the meaning that I'm deriving from feeling the doomsday and the paranoia and the suffering and fear that so many in the world are feeling. I see it, I look at it, and I absorb it, and I feel it too. And is my response to it. It's just how I choose to respond to it to keep the dream alive, keep everyone dreaming, keep my homie spirits up. Like we're in this together. We're gonna be okay. And if I give in to the doomsday and the thoughts that come up, then that's not gonna serve anyone. And to be honest, from level, so I just kind of described level 1 through 6 kind of, because level 7, no judgment, from that place, I can see the doomsday. I could see the dystopian nightmare, and I could see the utopian dream, and I could look at both of them and just feel reassured that whatever timeline that's gonna happen, it's meant to happen. If it's the dystopian crumbling of society and humanity doesn't make it, then we don't make it, but Earth's gonna be okay. And if we are successful in birthing new Earth, then great. But either way, the meaning that I'm deriving from feeling the entire spectrum is totally worth it, because it's propelling my journey and giving the words I speak and the words I write meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, you choose to follow thoughts and experiences of happiness and joy, as opposed to giving in to the fear. And if we want to truly experience and know what fearlessness feels like, we first must experience the fear and the full capacity of fear. And then only then we will know what the other side feels like, right? In order to experience love, we must first experience loss and sadness and grief. And then we know what love truly feels like. And the only way we can do all that is to allow life to unfold itself and allow experiences to be experiences, and to experience every little thing we possibly can from each and every experience, no matter how big or little it is. When you were talking about the sun and feeling that pure joy and pure ecstasy, and I would call it nirvana, in the way that I was able to do that as a kid, right? Go outside and you just feel joy, and you feel that equilibrium, right? That balance, and you feel that like nirvana. Like I don't even know how to explain nirvana. It's something that you feel. And then as we fill our minds with stuff that we don't necessarily need, we lose that the touch.
Yeah, we're not as present.
Yeah, because we know how it tastes. We know how sweet it tastes, how awesome it tastes. We continue to search for it. And what happens when you search for something? You find it. Right? So the more you search for it, the more you think about it, the more you focus on it, the higher the chance of you actually finding it.
Yeah, whether it's focus on the contracting and catabolic thoughts, or the anabolic and euphoric thoughts.
Yeah.
Whichever wolf you choose to feed, that wolf will grow. And
yeah. For me, it was, I remember waking up one morning without my anxiety, and it wasn't like I knew how I got there, but I woke up without it, and I started looking for it. And guess what happened? I found it. I found it again. And then I went in, and I was playing this habit for a little while until I realized the reason why I continue to find it is because I continue to look for it. I went from waking up in the morning with like an elephant sitting on my chest where I couldn't even breathe, to then waking up not feeling that, and waking up like a normal human being would, whatever that is, and then waking up with a smile. I would look for it, and I would find it. And then once I realized that this was my routine, this was my habit, this is what I was doing. And if I wanted that to stop, I needed to stop looking for it. So I decided there's certain things in my life that I don't want to look for, that I wanted to let go. And anxiety was one of those things that I didn't want to look for anymore. So I stopped looking for it and it went away. But I wanted to replace it with something else. So I replaced it with feeling good in the morning. And that's what I was looking for. How do I feel good in the morning? How do I feel good in the morning? How do I feel good in the morning? What do I need to do? What do I want to do? Right? How do I create that? So shifting my focus, right? If we worry a lot, that means we're really good at focusing on something. So I shifted my worries onto how do I do this now? How do I do this? And when you look for something, what happens? We find it. So I found it, and I kept it because I continued to look for it every single morning. Right? Just because you find it doesn't mean you get to keep it. You gotta continue to want it. Show interest in it.
Practice.
Like a partner. If you show interest in your partner is gonna walk away. Right? Your happiness is your partner. Your joy is your partner. Continue to look for it. And what you said that you do is you basically are looking and showing your partner your joy, your happiness, how much you love and appreciate it. And you continue to look for it, different ways. And you
exactly. It's a practice, and for me, it's a non-negotiable daily practice to first, I mean, when I wake up in the morning now, I am stoked to open my eyes and look around. And I mean, my circumstances, like there's so many things that I could complain about and feel sorry for myself about. And it's just, and at times, yeah, I took the level one option, like when I was healing my PTSD and I just wanted to be seen really in my struggle, which was a struggle that I wasn't going to be seen in by anyone else who experienced similar PTSD, and which is why I feel so passionately about empath warrior training, because we've all had similar PTSD. But yeah, and so now when I wake up, because of this practice that I've cultivated of really gratitude, the practice of gratitude, started my day with it, transformed my whole life, and has made me trip out over my basic necessities. Like if my basic, actually it began when I first really understood Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that pyramid that has at the bottom the physiological needs, like food, shelter, water, and then we work our way up, like psychological needs, and then the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, where you live up to your true potential. And after working with a coach for a while, without having worked with a coach, the concept of self-actualization wasn't registering. It didn't hit me what that meant. And then once I began seeing my true potential, not wanting to bargain with it, seeing others' true potential, I understood what that meant. And then I felt this overwhelming responsibility to show appreciation for my basic necessities, because also as a macro visionary and empath, I can feel all the parts of the world and all the people whose basic necessities aren't met. And I had a conscious thought, like, they don't have a chance right now to move up that pyramid and to have these needs met. So therefore, because I have my basic necessities met, it is my responsibility to self-actualize and continue on this path. And that turned into, from that moment forward, my daily practice, gratitude practice of looking at my water, like I would look at my water and talk to it, and I would hold it like this and be like, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much. I don't even know how how I got this lucky to be born in a country where I can have water, like, this easily, and shower this easily. And then what that did, that gratitude practice started expanding my empathy for those without basic necessities, and made which informed the passions and the grief that I was experiencing and frustration over injustices, like parts of this like parts of this country, parts of America where people have no access to clean water. Like that those that the emotional responses I was having to these truths about the world and our society was informing me of the path of my direction and where I was being led. But yeah, that gratitude practice shifted and um just like kept unfolding to basically where it is now, where I just wake up every morning and I'm so grateful for a bed. Like I wake up in a bed and it blows my mind that I got so lucky to have a roof over my head, to look out my window and see trees. Like I know there are brothers and sisters out there who are quarantined in a basement studio apartment, and I get to sit here, like while I'm chatting with you, I get to sit here and there's a willow tree in my view. And so, because I've developed this gratitude practice, I notice more and more things to be grateful for. Where everything I touch, every piece of food I put in my mouth. So, a lot of times it seems like I know that my spirituality has really developed over the past couple of years, um, and spirituality might, like the concept of it might be elusive and um, be unattractive or too mystifying or for some people. But to me, it really has not. It has everything to do with mindfulness. It's just bringing attention to the everything that I hold sacred, that we can all hold sacred, like water, like vegetables. Like you were talking about cabbage earlier. I remember at one point when I was coming back out of PTSD trauma loop and coming back into myself, into gratitude. And I remember looking at this purple head of cabbage and I was like, oh my God, like this is purple. I like held it up and showed my mom. I was like, can you believe this? Look what Mother Earth does. And I'd be like looking at my cacao, like chocolate, like Mother Earth makes chocolate and like flowers, like what's going on here? What is this place? And that's just kind of how I wake up every day now, because of a mindfulness. Like it doesn't have as much to do with spirituality as it may seem. It's really just a mindfulness practice of carefully curating the museum of the mind based on which thoughts make us feel the best and which thoughts provide the greatest energy and emanate out to the tribe and help the rest of the tribe to lift up. Like I've been noticing that I've been in such a high vibrational place that the people around me, like quarantining with my parents, they have no choice but to be uplifted. Like they cannot maintain their catabolic energy if I'm in the same room.
Yeah.
Which has never, that's new, that's never happened before. Usually I would dim and like just, and like I think I was telling you at one of these sessions, like I'd go into the kitchen and if someone would be in there, I would like notice my body, like my shoulders would, like curl a little bit, and I'd like hide, like, oh, I'm not as worthy of taking up space. And now I go into the kitchen, like sometimes I have my headphones in and I'm dancing and I'm smiling. I'm like, you gonna rock with me or what? And you could join me up here because I'm not joining you. I'm not joining you with your like news cycles. We're up here now.
Yeah.
So it's just mindfulness, and when we bring mindfulness to the things we're grateful for, then we start noticing that we can be grateful for every single thing we're looking at.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's a practice, right? It doesn't just happen overnight, little
Right.
by little. And what it sounds like what you were describing is um, that's what kids do in a way. And this is where we get to learn a lot from kids. Kids are our teachers, right? If we look at them, we would pay attention, we notice that a lot of things that we admire in our kids is what we have in ourselves. And a lot of things that we try to control in our kids is what we have in ourselves. And we were controlled as children as well. So when you were talking about like basically expressing curiosity and expressing the awe of this world, like purple cabbage, what? I was actually putting purple cabbage in my salad today, by the way. And my son, he goes, what is that? Purple cabbage. What? I was like, yeah, it's purple cabbage. Right?
Mother Earth does that?
Naturally.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if we just wake up, like we are a brand new person, like we are a child, because we are. If we wake up with this childlike curiosity and the childlike awe of this world, you go outside and you see clouds for the first time, even though you've seen it a million times, but look at them like you're looking at them for the first time ever. And I do that every time I see clouds. And my husband, he goes, "Oh my God, Yana, just are you high? Are you high?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sober." And he's like, "Really? Like, how do you do that, right? How do you like look at the clouds and think, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And look at this one, look at that one." And I just picture myself sitting on them. I'm like, they're so soft, and like just picturing them. It's like soft and like cotton ball. And that's joy. That's living life like a child. That having that uncontrollable and unstoppable awe and curiosity about everything in this world, seeing it like you're seeing it for the first time. Practice doing that every single day. I mean, at first you might feel like, oh my God, I'm a weirdo, right? Well, actually, the first time I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a weirdo, right? And then the second time, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a weirdo. And the third time, I was like, yes, oh my God, I'm a weirdo, right? Own you're weird. Own your uniqueness, own yourself, and stop listening to other people's fears that your shine is creating in them.
Yeah.
Because your shine, my shine, your shine, everyone's shine that is watching, I'm sure you can relate to this, is when you shine so brightly, it makes other people uncomfortable. So what they do is they take a nip at you, like they bite you a little bit, and it hurts. And then we go back into our bubble and we think that we're doing something wrong and we want to change. But in reality, we didn't do anything wrong. We're just being,
Just being.
just being.
Something that helps me when if my shine results in backlash, uh I just say to myself, did I die? I'm still breathing. I'm still here. They haven't killed me yet. And that's also something that, just because I do take the path of the warrior seriously, so I have all these different warrior mantras, and they help when it comes with expression, because my path is self-expression, and I think that's what every soul who begins this kind of work, it's, we might not necessarily know what we're doing when we take a leap of faith, but part of it, a big part of it, self-expression. And my self-expression, from the lens of an empath who was born from the higher dimensions of peace, love, and harmony, and has never understood why we don't just live there. Like, I think every empath can relate to that thought of, why do we wake up every day in this Babylonian dystopia where war exists and racism exists and injustice exists, when we could all just stop? We could drop it in an instant. We could overnight just decide, let's all just live and be. So I think empaths have that unique connection, that's our home dimension, that's where we're from. So we came here to bring it with us. We it's that I see this meme all the time that if you feel like you were born into a world where you don't belong, it's because you were meant to create a new one.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're doing, is we are creating that world we know. Like, this doesn't, separation, judgment, that doesn't feel like home. Harmony, like word like harmonics, just one of my favorite words in the English language, because that's my perception of the world. I see the harmonics in all of creation. So I think that and empaths are uniquely qualified to detect the harmonics, and our expression is where we weave them together, because as we express that perception, like when we're able to access that perception and detect the harmonics in the world. So from an energy level standpoint, it's usually we have access to levels 6 and 7. And then if anybody watching is more comfortable or more familiar with the 7 chakras, I just want to mention they're two very completely different systems. So this isn't to say if you understand one, you understand other, to intertwine or to like compare them. They're just two different modalities that both happen to have similar keys and portals. Like the portals feel similar, and the vortexes, the 7 levels based in more quantum physics, while as the chakras more metaphysical. So the in terms of chakras, the way I see it is we perceive the harmonics through our third eyes. We perceive the deeper meaning in all of life situations through the third eyes, and we could see how we could weave it all together if only we had the courage to express. And it could get stuck in the third eye. It could get stuck there our whole lives. It don't break through what is ever keeping our throat chakras blocked. When we receive that kind of information, we got to let it out of we got to speak it. We got to speak it into existence. And once we do, then we connect with like-minded tribe. If I didn't start speaking my truth, I would have never connected with Yana. If I never connected with Yana, the belief that I have in my own idealism and optimism never would have reached my heart. Because once we began speaking at this level, we achieved quantum communication. So our hearts were then in quantum entanglement patterns where we're literally threading a new fabric of reality through communication. And that does scare people. It scares the matrix because we are becoming more powerful, and everybody who perpetuates a matrix agent doesn't know that they're doing it. It's like we challenge the matrix, we challenge the status quo, so then people around us might appear as a matrix agent because they're being possessed by the status quo. So they do, and this is just coming back around. This is the whole point of this monologue, but yeah, so there will be projections and things that people say to hurt us, to silence us, to stifle us, because that's what the status quo does. It's self-perpetuating. So when someone stands up and is like, we could have this other life, and life would be better if we could all just be and exist and love and accept one another. It scares people because that would require for them to maybe feel things that they don't want to feel and drop into the heart, and it's scary. So yes, when people reject, ridicule, mock, disparage, dismiss my ideas, it used to, oh, I was just writing about this last night. Cool, I was sitting at my typewriter last night writing about this very thing. Those are our core values, our ideals, and a lot of empaths have similar core values that align with the path of truth, justice, and peace. And without justice, there's no peace. Without truth, there is no justice. And so empath warriors particularly are warriors for peace, for justice and truth, because we know that at the result of achieving those two phases, we will achieve peace. And so we do face a lot of rejection, ridicule, and attempts to silence us. But we are warriors, and we've been through it lifetime after lifetime. Empaths are old souls. We've already been through it. So what the mantras, the warrior mantras I tell myself are, yeah, but did you die? And I'll say, no, you're still breathing, bitch. Get up and get back out there. And I'll say, well, we know we didn't come to make it out alive. And I'll tell myself, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I'll have these warrior pep talks with myself. Like, what are you afraid of? Someone's going to tell you you're wrong. Someone's going to tell you you're too idealistic. Come on. Like, so what? You're going to live through it. You have every time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And in the end, we just become stronger after we fight through the fear, because each time we build confidence, each time we learn something new, and we become better and stronger after each and every time.
Every time.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at the time. I have a call with my mentor in like a couple of minutes.
Your mental, okay.
Yeah, that's why I went to get my daughter's laptop, because that's where I make it's Uber conference call, right? So it's easier for me to do it through the laptop, and I have my desk too. Well, not really a desk, a tiny little table here, while I'm hiding in the room. But honestly, I love these chats, these conversations, and I hope everyone that's watching loves them at least almost as much as we do, and takes notes. Honestly, I think there's a lot of golden nuggets and a lot of glitter sprinkled all over these videos, and by taking notes is only then we can go back and we can remember. And I believe that if you want that to stay in your subconscious mind, listening is one thing, but writing down physically, and taking that action, it embeds better and into your subconscious mind. And then that way you'll be doing certain things without even realizing it consciously. Yeah. So as always, pleasure. I love it. And I'm going to be hopping on my next call, and hopefully it's going to be a good one.
Yes, good luck. Have a great call.
Yes, I will.
Keep me posted how it goes. I'm so curious of how they're doing Mod 3 without meeting in person. So
yeah, that's coming up in May, so that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Oh, Mod 3.
So okay, thank you. Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.